So, let me stop blabbing and get to it. So, if you've already been studying with us, the book or the text that we are highlighting this week is, well, not this week, like the last month and 2 weeks, I think. So, is Egyptian Magic by E.A. Wallace Budge. I am definitely sure we're going to be done with this by the end of this month. So, I did, have a couple of, I don't necessarily want to say requests, but I did have a couple of inquiries as far as like, okay, what are we reading next? Or so, if you have any suggestions or any like topic areas about, just the Kemetic legacy, and again, I try to stay in the realm of something that's practical and something that like, well, okay, what does it look like in the 21st century type of a thing. So if you have any suggestions, the only requirement is I try not to I try not to read authors that like they just came out with a book or something like that, and that's literally because I don't want to read their stuff online for free. Like, that's not fair. That's not my art. Reciprocity. They did their research and stuff like that. So nothing like super current, and something that's generally kind of skinny, just so we could get through it a little faster. So I am pretty open. I really don't. Actually, let me rephrase that. I do have an area that I've been pondering a lot in the past couple days. But I'm not sure of what book will fit that thought. So if you have suggestions, feel free. So we are picking up on page 82, I believe, because we stopped at the beginning of it. If you'll notice, we got Ra in the house. Usually Sekhmet be chilling here, which technically Sekhmet's day be on Tuesday, but I don't know. This is like usually her little domain. She got moved over a couple of bookshelves. So, since we are finishing up reading about Ra and Apep and all that other good stuff, hence why we got some Ra stuff going on back there. So, like I said, we're starting on page 82. In another part of the book, the reciter is told to say the following, firmly with the mouth: "Down upon thy face, O Apep, enemy of Ra. The flame which cometh forth from the eye of Heru advanceth against thee. Thou art thrust down upon the flame of fire, and it cometh against thee. Its flame is deadly to thy soul and thy spirit, and to thy word of power, and to thy body, and to thy shade. The lady of the fire," so Sekhmet, oh, come on. "The lady of the fire prevaileth over thee. The flame pierceth thy soul. It maketh an end to thy person, and darteth into thy form. The eye of Heru, which is powerful against its enemies, has cast thee down. It devoureth thee. The great fire tireth thee. The eye of Ra prevaileth over thee. The flame devoureth thee. And what escapeth from it hath no being. Get thee back, for thou art cut asunder. The soul is shriveled up. Thy accursed name is buried in oblivion." Damn, ain't no coming back. "And silence is upon it, and it hath fallen out of remembrance. Thou hast come to an end, and hast been driven away, and thou art forgotten. To make these words to be of effect, the speaker is told to write the names of Apep upon the papyrus. I remember we did start talking about this last week. And burn it with fire, either when Ra is rising, or at noon or sunset. In another part of the work, after a series of curses which are ordered to be said over Apep, the rubric directs that they shall be recited by a person who hath washed himself and is ceremonially clean. And when this has been done, he is to write in green color upon a piece of new papyrus." I do remember we did read this. So I'm like, so essentially, because now it's all coming back to me. So pretty much it's all the different ways that we are supposed to smite, aka remind ourselves we shouldn't be, getting APEP in here, and we gotta get them out. So for anybody who's new, APEP would be, I think that's an oversimplification, I'm not even gonna say that. He is an agent of chaos, evil, Isfet, anything that is the opposite of Ma'at. He is like the mover and shaker of all things unma'atic. So that, I think that's the easier way of saying it, because I'm about to make a very shallow comparison, so I don't want to do that. Ooh. I'm like, because I know we had a couple more pages, but I feel like I stopped on one and not the other. Yeah, no, okay, so this part down here is new. He must then make figures of all these fiends in wax, and having inscribed their names upon them, must tie them up with black hair. So I guess I don't count, or maybe I could tie it with the roots, because actually I won't even be able to tie it with the roots soon. And then cast them on the ground, kick them with your left foot, and pierce them with a stone spear. This done, they are to be thrown into a fire. More than once it is said, it is good for a man to recite this book before the August Netzer regularly. So I imagine before the new year, or at the new year. For doing of it was believed to give great power to him, both upon earth and the underworld, or in the Duat. Finally, after the names of Apep are enumerated, he who would benefit by the knowledge of them is bidden to make the figure of a serpent with his tail in his mouth. So, that serpent that looks like the infinity sign, or like a number 8, and he's eating his tail. So that sign. Make the figure of a serpent with his tail in his mouth, and having struck a knife in his back, cast him down upon the ground and say, Apep fiend betet. Then, in order to destroy the fiends who are in the train of Apep, Apep got a whole train. He was ahead of his time. I'm done. Other images or figures of them must be made with their hands tied behind them. I like that. These are called the children of inactivity. Ooh, that's a whole read by itself. So, I guess to you all, what would you, or now mind you, these can be actual beings, or these can be, I guess, mindsets or behaviors, actions, things like that. Who do you all think would be a fiend or in the train of Apep? Like, who are the children of inactivity? Like, how do we define that? Because then he just kind of goes on. So feel free, jump in. So in my opinion, I would say, well, one, inactivity. Duh. Like not doing anything. Fear, your ego, your pride. It could be a lot of different, a lot of different children of inactivity. But everything that is against Ma'at. So lying, cheating, stealing, those are like the easy ones. Being jealous, laying to waste the plowed land, so like wasting your opportunities, wasting your potential, being wrapped up in the past and not living in the present, or being wrapped up in the future and not living in the present. So Ma'akra is saying anything that stops you, stagnation, lies against yourself. I like that one. Oh my gosh, that is so funny. So, and I think I mentioned this last week. So I'm teaching a finance class, and one of the things that, before we even get into the money, we talk about a money mindset. And this week we're talking about your life toolbox. What are the different tools you have in your toolbox? Like, what do you do when somebody breaks up with you? What do you do when you lose a job? What are your essentially coping mechanisms. So, you know, so these things that are in your life toolbox, and like, so today we talked about EFT, emotional freedom technique. We talked about how to use music, like different playlists for different purposes. So I said, if you need to be amped up, if you're getting ready to go for a job interview, or I was like, maybe not a driving test because we don't want to be reckless. But, you know, like, depending on what it is, you might want to use a different playlist to kind of like get you there. So, I'm trying to think. Like, what else? We talked about being mindful, practicing mindfulness. We practice, like, what does mindfulness actually look like? And I basically told them, like, keeping it 100% real with yourself, even when it's uncomfortable, or like, you know, not being afraid to close your eyes. I'm sorry, not being afraid and not closing your eyes when something gets difficult or reminds you of something that happened in the past. Like, we have to be able to let it go. So when Ma'akara is saying these lies against ourselves, like these stories we tell ourselves, these narratives that we got going on in our minds, talking ourselves out of stuff, our, I don't even want to say low self-esteem, because I feel like that word is so overused that, you know, you hear it so often that you're like, well, what exactly is that? And what does it look like? You know, kind of thing. So, when I think of one's self-esteem, like, I told the kids today, like, I know it's cliche, but do you really love yourself? Do you look in the mirror and say you love yourself? Do you treat yourself like you love yourself? Like, I have this sign on my refrigerator and it said, it's two of them. One says, eat like you love yourself. And the other one says, you know, I only put, divine foods in my divine temple, kind of a thing. So it's like a constant reminder. So let's be real. I have a sweet tooth. I love candy. I love, respectfully, I don't even really like baked goods like that. I'll eat pie every now and then, but I love brownies. Like, I don't care about cupcakes. I don't care about cake. I don't care about none of brownies and pie. I don't even like ice cream. I don't care about, like, but candy? Woo, that's so difficult for me, you know. But it's one of those things, like, okay, am I eating this because I'm emotional? Am I eating this because I'm bored? Am I eating this because I'm unhappy? So I want to taste literally some sweetness because I'm unhappy. So all of these things we do to ourselves or put ourselves in certain positions and stuff like that, can definitely qualify as those lies against ourselves, and part of these children of inactivity, or folks in the train APEP. The papyrus then continues. Make another serpent with the face of a cat and with the knife stuck in its back, and call it Hemhem or Roarer. Make another with the face of a crocodile with the knife stuck in its back, and call it Hauna Ar Her Pra. Ooh, that's a long name. Hauna Aru Her Hara. Addictions, yes! And not the run-of-the-mill, you know, controlled or non-controlled substances. We can be addicted to people. We can be addicted to TV. We can be addicted to numbing ourselves. We can be addicted to so many things because they're distractions. So yes, air high five. Whoop. Yes, I love that. That is such a good, I don't know how, I didn't think of that. See, this is why we need each other. Because I surely didn't remember that. So make another with the face of a duck. Damn, even the ducks are getting stabbed. And with a knife in its back, and call it a luti. Make another with the face of a white cat with a knife stuck in its back, and tie it up and bind it tightly, and call it Apep the enemy. Now, I could make so many jokes about that, given the current climate of our country. I won't, but feel free to, you know, read in between the lines with that one. Such are the means which the Kemetu adopted when they wanted to keep away rain and storm, thunder and lightning, mist and cloud, to ensure a bright, clear sky wherein the sun might run its course. So essentially, you want to tie up all the stuff that's going to get in the way of Ra. Your creativity, your potential, your inner fire, your creative force, your authority, your godliness. Take all that junk and literally stab it in the back, kill it, boom, get rid of it. that's what I'm getting out of all of that. Like, I'm about to start just, okay, that sounded kind of like a sociopath. Like, I'm gonna just start go stabbing stuff. Ah! Like, no, not really. I kid. But when it comes to having like protective amulets and having my own ritual and things like that, especially if it's a time when I'm like, people be like, I'm going through it. If I'm going through it, I have my other things, but that's something that I could add into my toolbox. Like, what, let me do this ritual real quick. Let me restore the path for Ra to come through. Let me get rid of this train of APEP. Let me get rid of the children's APEP and so what is it? What needs to be stabbed? What needs to be gotten rid of? So under the heading of magical figures must certainly be included the so-called Ptah Seker Asar figure, which is usually made of wood. It is often solid, but it's sometimes made hollow and usually let into a rectangular, wooden stand, which may be either solid or hollow. Three Neteru or Trinity, Ptah, Seker, and Asar are intended to represent the nature of the sunrise, so Ptah, the nature of the night sun, Seker, and the nature of resurrection, Asar. The name Ptah means opener and is usually applied to the sun as the opener in the day. The name Seker means he who is shut in. That is to say, the night sun, aka the moon, who is regarded as the sun buried temporarily. Now, the life of a man upon earth was identified with that of the sun. He opened or began his life as Ptah, and after death he was shut in or coffined like it also. But the sun rises again when the night is past, and as it begins a new life with renewed strength and vigor, it becomes the type of new life which the Kemetu hoped to live in the world beyond the grave. But the difficulty was how to obtain the protection of Ptah, Seker, and Asar, and how to make them do for the man that which they did for themselves, and so secure their attributes. To attain this, and a figure fashioned in such a way as to include the chief characteristics of the form of these Neteru, it was inserted in a rectangular wooden stand, which was intended to represent the coffin or chest out of which the Ptah, Seker, Asar came forth. On the figure itself and on the sides of the stand were inscribed prayers on behalf of the person who it was made, and the Kemetu believed that these prayers caused the might and powers of these three to come and dwell in the wooden figure. But in order to make the I'm like, that just like hit something in my brain, but let me at least finish reading this page. But in order to make the stand of the figure as much like a coffin as possible, a small portion of the body of the deceased was carefully mummified and placed in it. Okay, I wasn't going to say anything that had to do with that. And it was thought that if these three Neteru protected and preserved that peace, and if they revived it in due season, the whole body would be protected, preserved, and revived. Frequently, especially in the late period, a cavity was made in the side of the stand, and this was laid in a small roll of papyrus inscribed in the text of certain chapters of the Book of the Purdom Peru. Thus, the deceased was provided with additional security for the resurrection of his spiritual body in the world to come. So, that turned a little bit more than I was going to go. So, what I was thinking is this idea of, you know how they tell you, I don't want to say they tell you, but in life, sometimes we hit low places. Sometimes we rent an apartment in these low places. Respectfully. Like, you know, it is what it is. Sometimes you're just there and you just chilling there for a little. You maybe pick up a part-time job in the low place. But eventually most people do at least try to attempt. So even if you regress later on and so on and so forth, the point of the matter is you try to push through. So my thought was, anyways, is this idea that even though, again, this is intended for those who've already passed on, when we are at those types of points in our lives, when we're just like, you know, I don't want to project, but I'm a project. You'll know when you just hit that moment and you just laying in bed, or you roll over and you looking at that partner, or you just have that like out of body experience for 2.2 seconds and you're just like, why am I here? Why are things like this? I can't do this no more. Like, you know, you just hit that point. I feel like nowadays making a ritual similar to this would be very, very powerful. And it even reminds me of like going to the Botanica, like when they dress a candle and like everything that they do to be like, no, we put in all this intention in there, we put in all this power in there, we put in all this energy in there, we, you know, we getting all the, well, they don't call it Neteru, but you know, they get their deities to, you know, literally come in. It's like giving the Neteru a little hooty hoo, like, come on, I need you. But you know, where we are in life is this dead place. We're in that low place. So doing something, a ritual like this, where I'm not necessarily saying you have to make a coffin for yourself, but to create some sort of like a box and say, okay, time to get rid of that version of myself. Time to get rid of, as we said earlier, that addiction. It's time to get rid of this toxic relationship, this toxic friendship. You know, like maybe I need to stop hating on the opposite gender because my mommy or daddy did X, Y, or Z to me or what have you. Like, it's time to kill it. And not kill it as in throw it away like the APEP version, because sometimes we need to do that. But sometimes we need to kill it, but just say, because a lot of times people identify with their trauma. They, oh, this is who I am. You know, it's fearful. It's change is scary, but it's this idea of you can kill it, but now it's guarded and protected by Ptah, Seker, and Asar. So you are reviving your divine self, your true self, your best self, your Haru self, your Ra, and getting rid of that lower vibration, that, you know, that other version of yourself. Like, as it says, every day we have the new opportunity, just like you know, the sun comes up, then the moon comes up. Like, life is just gonna keep going, point blank period. Like, life is just gonna keep going. So I think I can definitely reflect on my life and see moments where that would have been really powerful for me personally. Because I think it's something, I'm trying to think of the word. It's kind of like, and you know how they, in our own egos, we like to be in control, but it's kind of like you do have some sort of control. It's a visual of, I'm taking control of my life. Not that, oh, I'll start that diet tomorrow. I'll go tomorrow, or I'm going to sit down and have that talk with them tomorrow. Like, no, you literally you took the time to prepare. You took the time to buy these items. You took the time to think it through. You took the time to do the ritual. You know what I mean? Like, it's hard to say, tomorrow, after you already started putting so much work into it. So, that was my thought. that was my thought. I guess feel free. I know I do a lot of reading, and now I think because I'm doing a lot more visual teaching, I'm starting to be like, what do y'all think? What are y'all opinions? Let's have a conversation. So, is that something that would be helpful for you? Are there times in your life where maybe you could have used that, or maybe that would be a good starting point, but you might want to add something? Let me know. Let all of us know. And it's not even just the people who are here right now, but these do get uploaded, and actually a lot of people watch them more after the fact. I even started uploading old ones onto YouTube. So, what your feedback is, doesn't just help us right here, right now, but also in the future, or even to come back to later on. Like, I remember that time we was talking about that time when I had a horrible thing going on and that one ritual. Like, so yeah, feel free to talk in the chat. I'm just saying, I invite you. All right, so it goes on. The little rolls of papyrus are often inscribed with but short and fragmentary texts. You don't know me. Y'all funny. But occasionally, as is in the case of the priestess Anahi, the fine large papyrus, and he notes the papyrus is preserved at the British Museum. Oh, so surprising. Thank you, Budge. Inscribed with numerous texts and illustrated with vignettes, was placed inside the figure of the Neter, who in this instance is in the form of Asar only. It seems that the Ptah Seker Asar figure was much used in the late period. For many inscribed examples have been found, which are not only illegible. Gosh, I was about to say ineligible. Yeah. Are we sure the shadow is over? Anyway, not only illegible, but which prove that the artist had not the remotest idea of the meaning of the things which he was writing. Side note, I'm like, I'm gonna put the whole bookmark in there. Like, let me tell y'all. No, let me stop. So, one of my pet peeves is when, these like memes, and they don't be true, but people share them and then be like, oh, I'm so smart. But it's like, that's not even real. You're just making stuff up. Like, of all the messed up, horrible things that actually really, really happened, you're just gonna pass on fake stuff. Why? That's so wasteful. Like, I can't. So anyway, I was not necessarily going back and forth, but like at this point I just collect these horrible, facts they don't teach you in school. It's like, we don't teach it in school because it's not real, beloved. But okay, I got you. So anyway, so I was going back and forth about it was something, and they were trying to say that, like, something about spaceships and stuff like that. It had something to do with that. And the person was like, you don't know. And I'm like, well, there are plenty of scholars that wrote about it. I'm not listening to the white man, something. And I'm like, well, there are plenty of black scholars. Well, they've been brainwashed. I'm like, oh, so you just don't believe in education. Like, you gotta have a starting point. You just can't be like, I'm so smart, I know everything. Which, granted, yeah, in some cases that's cool, but it wasn't a spaceship. It was literally, it looked like a spaceship, but it was only because the people who actually made like the carvings in a lot of the like temples and stuff like that, they were artisans, they were workers, they were illiterate. So they got told what to write. They got told, this means such and such and such. Go do it. Okay, cool. And then the people who were literate, the scribes and the priests would come and they would read it and be like, that's a mistake. So they would have to plaster over it and then kind of redo it. And because of time, part of the plaster fell out, blah, blah, blah. Hence why it looked like a spaceship. But, and that lady fought me on that one. I'm like, oh, man. Like, when being woke goes wrong, like, what are you doing? You so woke, you wrong, and you don't even want to admit it. But okay, cool, whatever. It's your life. I can't tell you what to do. So the fact that in here that they're saying like you couldn't read some of the inscriptions and stuff like that, it reminds me that it was a very, very, very small amount of people who were literate and could read and write. And if we remember earlier in the book, they were talking about people who essentially were just like, oh, look at that, I'm gonna just make money off of it, and would just copy stuff and didn't know what they were writing, or they would write magical spells, or they would tell you they could do this service, but they really can't because they're not qualified, or they're, they haven't studied, or, they're just not at that level. If you play video games, you gotta be at a certain level to deal with certain stuff, but they wasn't there. So this just like reinforces that, like the fact that some of these people, especially in the later times, were going to folks to get, these different items and buying them from people who were like, I got you for the discount kind of a person. So, oh, see, look, I love it when a plan comes together. It is possible that they were employed largely by the poor, among whom they seem to have served the purpose of the costly tomb. So basically, it was something for people who couldn't afford all that. So this is a picture of the Ptah Seker figure with a cavity containing a portion of a human body mummified. Dead bodies, y'all. Don't get me banned. So that's the picture. I'm not sure where the little piece of the dead body is. I kind of don't really want to know. I'm okay with that ignorance. Yeah. Like, I'm very okay with that. Returning once more to the subject of wax figures, it may be wondered why such a very large proportion of the figures of the Neteru, which were worn by the living and attached to the bodies of the dead as amulets, are made of almost every kind of substance except wax. I mean, respectfully, I kind of feel like that's a no-brainer, but let's see where he goes, because I feel like that's a no-brainer. But the reason of this is not far to seek. Wax is a substance which readily changes its form under heat and pressure. I mean, when this book was written, did wax like magically change that he had to explain this to people? Like, I'm sorry, I find that pretty humorous. But the reason, blah, 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 I just read that. And it is also possible that the fact of it having been employed from the time immemorable for making figures which were intended to work harm and not good, induced those who made amulets in the form of Neteru to select some other material. As a matter of fact, however, several figures of Neteru made of wax to serve as protective amulets are known, and a set of 4 representing the 4 children of Heru. Oh my gosh. I'm like, there's an actual term for that I cannot remember. Oh, I'm such a bad Chemite right now. I'm like, Imset? Dumatef? Like, I got their names, but somehow I can't remember The sons of Haru. I'm going to just keep it regular degular. All right, so now preserved in the British Museum are worthy of notice. The 4 children of Haru, or the Neteru of the 4 cardinal points, were called, oh, you know when you see a word and you're like, that can't be how that's, thank you, the Mesu Haru. I knew it. Well, actually, I knew you knew it. And I'm going to just take the credit like I did. Do I, sis? So, the first one is spelled Mestha. But if I read it fast in my mind, it sounds like Mestha. Okay. Mestha. If you say it really fast, it sounds like massa. Just saying. Like, I don't want to say that. So, Happy, Duamatef, and Kebsanuf. Forgot about the C. I always had 3 out of 4. I always forget Kebsanuf. My bad. See, I am not perfect. I am perfecting. I wish to be like you all one day. I'm not there yet. All right, so, and with them were associated the Netert, Osset, Nebet-Het, Neith, and Serket, respectively. Now that I did not know. Mestha was man-headed and represented the South. Please feel free to jump on in and remind me. Would that be Imsat? Would that be Mestha? I don't remember. It's been a long time. See, now I'm like, oh, shame. Game of Thrones, shame. I'm like, I can't remember who's who. All right, so he represented the South, protected the stomach and large intestines. Happy was dog-headed and represented the North, protected the small intestines. Duamatef, or Duamatef with a T, was jackal-headed, represented the East, protected the lungs and the heart. And Kebsanuf was hawk-headed and represented the West and protected the liver and the gallbladder. So Kebsanuf must be mad at me because he only about to get a liver when I pass, because I ain't got no gallbladder. Just saying. All right, the various internal organs of people. We are going to be gender neutral. Let me stop. I'm being facetious. The various internal organs of men were removed from the body before it was mummified, and having been steeped in certain astringent substances and bitumen, were wrapped up in bandages, laid in 4 jars made of stone, marble, porcelain, earthenware, that's a new one, or wood. I'm pretty sure the wood ones didn't last. Unless they lacquered them or something. Each jar was placed under the protection of one of the, I'm like, Mesu Haru. See, look. Teamwork makes the dream work. And as it was hollow, it covered, its cover was made in the form of the head of the Neteru who was represented by it, and the jar means of the inscription upon it became an abode to the Neter. Or that specific nature. It might as well be said that these organs of the deceased, which was put in it, were actually placed inside the god. No lie, that is dope as hell. I'm just saying. Like, you know how they be like, oh, I am God, I am one with God, but to literally, like, physically be inside of God, that's kind of gross and amazing all at the same time. Just, I mean, you know, that's just me. The custom of embalming the intestines separately is very old. Several examples from the 11th dynasty are known. Even at that early period, the 4 jars were placed in a funeral chest or coffer and was mounted on a sledge and drawn along the funeral procession, not possession, immediately after the coffin. In later times, we find that many attempts were made to secure for the deceased the benefit of protection of these 4 Neteru without incurring the expense of the stone jars. This could be done by burying him with 4 models or, quote, dummy jars, or 4 porcelain figures of the 4 Neteru, or 4 wax ones. For some unknown reason, the set referred to above was made of wax. Okay, so he's referencing something, but it's like mad numbers. So this is the visual that goes along with that. So you got the 4 Neteru or the 4 Mesu Haru, and then like this is the chest where all the gushy parts go, I guess. Yeah, for like it really does. I mean, I won't remember respectfully because I'ma already be journeying to the west, but I still think it's dope. And even if we think about it, like, because again, I'm a teacher, I teach things. But we talk about, we were talking about morals and things like that in another one of my classes. And we talked about like different customs and social norms and things like that. And we were talking about death, and it literally blew the kids' minds. They were like, how much does it cost? Oh my God, why does it cost that much? What if you can't just put me in a box? I was like, no, that's illegal. You can't just put me in a box somewhere. I mean, I'm like, well, no. Like, no, there are rules against that. You can't just do that. And then what blew their mind even more was how much it costs to be born. But you know, that's another conversation. But anywho, part of our conversation, because I try not to be too down, because I do have them like first thing in the morning, like, hey, good morning, death. Like, don't nobody want to do that first thing in the morning. But it's a real conversation. So, anyways, I say all of that to say that when we have these rituals and things like that, when people die, one of the videos that I showed the kids, it emphasized like how much we do things for the living, not really for the person who's gone. Like, yes, we remember them, we want to put these rituals in place and this, that, and the third, but like, to me, I have elderly parents, or older. They are seasoned seniors, and but that, life happens, and I would really feel, I don't know what word to use, like, not blessed, but like watched over, held, comforted, if the organs of my loved one were preserved and literally put in to a Neteru, even the idea of like them hiring people to cry and wail, and you know what I mean, like all of that, for lack of a better way of saying it, pageantry in death is like, it's for us. Yes, it's for them, but it's really for us, who are left over. So that would really give me a lot of comfort, like as an onlooker, if my, someone I loved transitioned. So and then even still, like the opening of the mouth ceremony, like all of these different things that we do, like it's so different compared to Western society, because it's like, the person passes away, they take them away, and you just bring some clothes, write an obituary, pay a whole butt ton of money, and pick the coffin. You choose things, but you're not involved, you're not a part, you're like a voyeur, I guess you would say. Like it's very voyeuristic. So I think something like having these certain kind of rituals, it also helps you deal with death. It helps you deal with loss much differently because you're involved. It has these little things that have, yes, a spiritual function for the deceased, but emotional support for the person who's left behind. So if I'm off task, feel free to let me know. So the four, Mesu Haru played a very important part of the funeral works of early dynasties. They originally represented the four supports of heaven, but very soon were regarded as the neter of one of the four corners of the earth, and also that quarter of the heavens which was above it. Oh, that's interesting. The idea of like you're the neter of this space right here. Oh, y'all gonna get mad at me. Don't get mad at me. Promise you ain't gonna get mad at me. You're lying. You're about to get mad at me. So, my first thought was, oh, that's like Donald Trump. I told you he was going to get mad at me. Hear me out, though. Donald Trump made more money by selling space, like air space. For building his skyscrapers and so on and so forth, like real estate. I know there's an actual name for it. Do I remember it? No, I don't. But that it just, I told you, yeah. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, y'all. I didn't. I ain't trying to disrespect the Neteru. It was just the association my brain made. I'm sorry. But I just think that that's really interesting, like, to have this infinite space that you have dominion over, but it goes in this direction. Like, I don't know, it's just visually, I think that's so interesting. Like, anyway, I could go off in my whole comparison of Star Wars, but I'm not. I won't do it. All right, so Ma'akara says, it makes it easier to understand death. If you show respect in life and death, it makes it easier perhaps to understand that it is a transition and different way of interacting with your loved ones. Yes, I thoroughly agree with that. Again, because, people, oh, they're in a better place now. And it's just like, I know you're saying that because my grief is making you uncomfortable. I'm pretty sure you probably believe that. Or, oh, they're not in pain anymore. Like, all those things people say to try to comfort you, and you kind of just want to go hide under your bed and be like, kick rocks. Or maybe that's me. Maybe I'm projecting again. I'm just saying. I ran out of space. It's okay. But it's just such a different way of appreciating life, being a part of that process. And I definitely agree with Ma'akara that whole idea of understanding transition, understanding, for us, like, okay, I'm not saying that there is no hell, but there's no hell. Just saying, like, we have delicious foods and no hell over here in Kemetic land, Kemetic practitioner land. No hell, y'all. I mean, does that mean that there is not a place, if you're bad, that you ain't gotta? I was about to say we got donuts, but we don't got donuts because we eat healthy foods. So we have delicious insert food that you like that is healthy here. We have that. Yes. But again, so back on point. So but again, just that whole idea of what is life, what is death, what is our relation to our family members, like, and what does all of that look like? What is, a spiritual being having a human experience? Like, it just makes you so much more connected and understanding of that. instead of just, why me? Why did they have to take them? Why, like, and I'm being sarcastic in my delivery, but I know people who have lost people, and it's never easy to lose a loved one. It never is. So I'm not trying to diminish anyone's pain at all. But I guess by saying all of this, some people deal with grief very differently, and I understand that. But if you had this deeper understanding, if you had that participation, if you had all of that fear, that anger, that, you know what I mean? Like, not to say it wouldn't be there at all, but it would definitely be transmuted in a different way. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. Y'all still mad at me for saying Trump. I'm sorry. I said I was sorry. Y'all are like, why did you bring it back up? We forgot. Back on task now. Back on task. Represented the four, earth, heaven, which was above it. Okay. As the constant prayer of the deceased As the constant prayer of the deceased was that is an odd sentence, he should be able to go about wherever he pleased, both on earth and in heaven. I almost turned into reciting Christian stuff. You see how bad that indoctrination stuff? It just almost fell out my mouth. Dang. I apologize. On earth and in heaven. It was absolutely necessary for his welfare that he should help me, Kemetie. Propitiate. Propitiate. That is a word I've never heard of in life ever. Feel free to Google and let me know what it means. Propitiate. Yeah, I feel like not knowing what that means, and I can't look it up because y'all are on the phone. Necessary that his welfare, that he should propitiate these Neteru and place himself under their protection. I feel like that word will change my whole understanding right there. But anyways, I'm gonna keep going for now. Which could only be secured by the recital of certain words of power over figures of them or over jars made to represent them. Okay. But of all the Kemetiu who were skilled in working magic, I'm like, this is so Greek, it doesn't even sound right. Propitiate. That's the word. So yeah, super Greek name warning. Nectanebus. That don't sound nowhere near. That don't sound nowhere near Ronnie Kemet at all. Like, that is not a Kemetic name. The last native Nasut of Kemet, about BCE 358, was the chief of what we may believe, see, look, Greek traditions. Here you go with the, like, let me talk about some Greeks real quick. Skip. He was deeply learned. Alright, so here we go. He knew what was in the depths of the Hapi and of the heavens. He was skilled in reading the stars, interpreting omens, in casting nativities, in telling fortunes, and in predicting the future of the unborn child, and in working magic of every kind, as we shall see. He was said to be the lord of the earth and to rule all kings by means of his magical powers. Wherever he was threatened, whenever he was threatened with the invasion by sea or by land, he succeeded in destroying the power of his enemies and in driving them from his coasts or frontiers. And this he did by the following means. If the enemy came against him by sea, instead of sending out his sailors to fight them, he retired into a certain chamber, and having brought forth a bowl which he kept for the purpose, he filled it with water, and then having made wax figures of the ships and the men of the enemy, and also his own men and ships, he set them upon the water in a bowl, his men on one side and those of the enemy on the other. He then came out, and having put on a cloak of a prophet, and taking an ebony rod in his hand, he returned into the chamber, and uttering Hekau, he invoked the Neteru to help men to work magic, and the winds and the subterranean demons, which straightway came to his aid. But by their means, the figures of the men in wax sprang into life and began to fight, and the ships of wax began to move about likewise. But the figures which represented his own men vanquished those who represented the enemy. And as the figures of the ships and the men of the hostile fleet sank into the water at the bottom of the bowl, even so did the real ship and men sink through the waters of the bottom of the sea. In this way, he succeeded in maintaining his power and continued to occupy his kingdom in peace for a considerable period. Duai Kurti. So win or regain the favor of nature, spirit, or person by doing something pleasant. So to go back to that word that he should... Oh, now that sentence makes sense. That sentence makes way more sense. So basically, you would be pleasing to the Neteru so long as, you know, pretty much you did similar to what I just read about this king. That's essentially what it's saying. Like, you're going to win favor of the Neteru by reciting prayers and over wax figures and other things to represent your enemies. I think it's very interesting, side note, I think it's very interesting that Budge is very, very concerned about enemies. Like, I'm wondering, as this book continues, I'm wondering if he'll get to, I don't want to say positive, because it's not like it's negative, it's just like it's a little more concentrating on I'm gonna get you, sucker, type of thing. Yeah, so essentially, like, if you say your Hekau, if you do this certain prescription of things, then you will receive the blessings. That's essentially what it was saying. Or things are going to go your way, or in your favor, type of a thing. Which, again, this is the limitation of Budge. And, you know, because, I mean, he's not a practitioner. He's an Egyptologist. Like, let's keep it real. Like, he doesn't talk about the balance. So, like, okay, you could do this stuff, but people could be your enemies, but maybe they're enemies that you made in your head. Or maybe you're really the enemy, and maybe, you know, like, like, he doesn't really kind of balance it out. At least for me, in my humble opinion. Like, it doesn't balance out for me. So, that's just my thoughts on that one. I forgot that this was a long behind chapter. Why is this chapter so long? Golly. Alright. I thought we was going to finish it today. But we not. Alright. So we talked about the magical figures. We talked about the wax figures. We essentially really just talked about, or finished talking about how, you know, to kind of get rid of Apep, get rid of the fiends, the friends, the train of folks, the accomplices and children I'm picking all my adjectives right now. All of them folks who are in league with APEP are all about ISFET and how to check ourselves, how we can potentially use some of these rituals to help us, like when we're in our darkest nights of the soul, as Nasut Bidi Rasanku Kepper from the Temple of Anu says. You can do these different rituals to kind of, again, have a visual. We talked about the Mesu Haru, which about guarding the different organs of your body, the cardinal points. I made a reference to a certain orange Cheeto, which I'm not going to lie. Let me be quiet. Hush. Hush your mouth. Be quiet. I'm not going to say it. All right, I'm going to stop. So, just looking forward. So the next chapter is talking about magical pictures, formula, and spells. So that will be next week. I'm like trying to see, is that a really long chapter? Oh, wait. Is it? Or is it lying to me? Yeah, that one's a pretty long chapter. So we'll at least be starting that next week. Oh, see, and then it's moments like this that I'm just like, I just want to sit here and look at it all and try to figure out all the imagery and just talk about it, because, why not? That's why we're here. So, that is going to be it for tonight. I appreciate y'all for coming, for Googling things, for telling me if I'm totally off my rocker, or if y'all agree, disagree, your thoughts. I very much appreciate y'all being here with me, studying with me, conversing with me, etc. So, until next week, if you would like to join the conversation, feel free to join us over at Comedic Living in the 21st Century over on Facebook. It is a private group. Respectfully, not everybody gets accepted, because there would just be some people that love y'all family, but you kind of toxic. So yeah. So feel free, if you about light, love, you want to learn, and moving forward, feel free to join us over there for continuance in the conversation. And just in general, next week, I can't wait. I'm very excited for the couple announcements of stuff that I have been working on. So I will see you all next week. Ama tu impanatir, sawik tu menten panatir, audwa ma kati paheru. Give yourself to Nature Daily, keep yourself for Nature Daily, and may tomorrow be as today. See y'all next week. Stay healthy. Shami Matab.
We the reflection of our ancestors. We like to thank you for the building blocks you left us. As your spirit possessed us, show you blessed us. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.